Cool. So welcome everyone. This is our monthly iMap Invasives webinar, and this month's topic is updates and getting set up for our field data collection tools since the weather's warmer now and field season is pretty much starting right now or even a few weeks ago. Um, s- so iMap Invasives is the New York State Invasive Species Database, and so part of that is the data going in and also the data going out and being used in various analyses. And so what we're talking about today is mainly this field data collection aspect for people doing field work and collecting that information in iMap Invasives. And so for how we're structuring it today, um, I'm giving a brief intro, and then we'll start to cover some data collection tools. And just to back up, my name is Mitch O'Neill. I'm the invasive species biologist with the iMap Invasives team at the New York Natural Heritage Program. And we also have Douglas Knopf today, the iMap Invasives project specialist, who will also be discussing some of our data collection tools. And after that, we'll talk about how to pick the best data collection tool. And Doug will also give a quick demo on email alerts. And there will be plenty of time for questions throughout the webinar, but we'll also have some time at the end. So if anyone has any questions at any time, please enter those into the chat box, which is a little speech bubble icon that you should see right below the slideshow in your WebEx window. And so for data collection and iMap invasives, there are a variety of different tools that we offer to collect that information. And they range from quick and simple tools to more complex tools for taking more detailed information and polygons, that sort of thing. So one way that you can put data into iMap invasives is just through our online interface. So that's where you log in and you see the map and there's a create record option. And so that has pretty much all of the functionality that exists for data collection. So you can do polygons, you can do multiple species at one location, you can answer detailed fields, but it's web-based, so it's on our website. You have to have good internet connection to use it, and it works best on a laptop or a computer, something with a larger monitor, and it does work on the mobile phone for data collection, but that can sometimes be trickier while out in the field. You might not have good internet connection, your screen might be small. So these 5 other tools we've developed more so to fit that use case of somebody out in the field collecting records as they go about their invasive species surveys. And within these field data collection tools, there's also a range from quick and simple to more detailed and complex. But they all follow the same sort of general workflow where you, when you have internet connectivity or in the office or at home, you download the app or the form, you get everything configured, you practice, make sure everything's working, basically just get set up. But then once you're all set up, you're ready to go out into the fields, collect data. You may or may not have cell phone service, but you're able to collect records and store those on your phone or tablet. And those kind of save on your tablet so that you have them. But to get them into the online database, you have to connect to internet or service when you get back home or back in the office and upload or sync those records. So that's kind of the general workflow for any of the tools that we'll talk about today. And so, yeah, like I said, they range from simple. So we have the mobile app, which is for points, very good for quick data collection or for volunteer programs. And then we have our survey 123 forms, which are for more detailed information, which I'll talk about soon. And then we have iMap Mobile Advanced, which is sort of the most advanced and detailed data collection. And so to start, we'll walk through each of these tools very briefly to cover any updates and some key tips to getting set up for the year. And so we'll start with the iMap mobile app, and I'll hand it over to Doug.
Thanks, Mitch. So starting out with the iMap mobile app, this is designed to be the simplest to use app, easy to pick up. Anyone who has a smart device can download it directly to their phone and make an account on our iMap website. And like Mitch was saying, it's easy for any sort of volunteers to use. They can contribute towards projects with your organization without having to be made a member of the organization. And it's pretty simple to give trainings on to train new users. Next slide. So just to go over a few tips for the app, you are able to use photos that you've taken out in the field previously. So if you didn't have the app previously, but you saw an invasive species, you can upload a data point using an existing photo. And so long as you have your location services turned on your device, it will automatically be able to take the geotag from that photo and fill in the latitude and longitude on the mobile app and kind of give that automatic location. If you're doing this, the only thing we ask is that you verify the date for the data point, just to make sure that the date that you're submitting it matches up with the date that you took the photo, in case there's a big gap between when you upload the point and take the photo. You can also, so for the most part, the location data will automatically fill in when you're taking a point using the app out in the field. The latitude and longitude will automatically fill in, and it will give you a small little map window so you can see if you're in the right location. But for the most part, this is pretty accurate. It uses the GPS on the phone automatically. So we just want to avoid making any sort of changes to that so that it goes in the right location when uploaded. And if you haven't used the app in a while, it may prompt you automatically to refresh the iMap list. But also, if you know there's been any sort of changes or updates to your projects or organizations, you can go into the Preferences tab and refresh the iMap list to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information. And since this is our most public-facing tool, we want people to be able to pick up easily. We're always looking at future development for kind of making the app more functional and cater to a wider range of uses. So these are just a list of some of the things that we're hoping to implement in the future. So being able to type in the latitude and longitude on their own, type ahead capabilities, multiple photos per record. Right now you can only upload a single photo for using the mobile app. So you might not be able to get a good idea of size of populations or things like that. Automatic jurisdiction identification, additional data fields that you can opt into, and positional accuracy, photo guidance. If any of these are things that you look at and say, this is something that I would definitely need in my tool, the things that are marked with a star are functionalities in some of our other tools that are available that we'll be going over soon.
Great. Thanks, Doug. And now I'll talk about some of our Survey 123 forms. And before I jump in, I just realized it would be useful to know in our audience here which tools people have used the most. So for anyone on the call right now who currently uses iMap invasives, please enter into the chat which data collection tools you've tended to use before, or which ones you're most interested in learning about. And yes, so now I will go talk about the Survey 123 forms. So Survey 123 is an app developed by Esri, the platform for ArcGIS for the most common ArcGIS software in the industry. And so the way that Survey 123 works is that you can create forms within the Survey 123 app that people can collect data on. So we have several different forms in Survey 123 that can be used to collect data that then goes into iMap invasives. So our general iMap invasive Survey 123 form, our simple aquatic survey form, force pest data collection tool, and post-treatment effectiveness. And so these are all used for slightly different things, which I'll go into. But the general workflow is the same. So you download the Survey123 application, you get the forms that you're interested in, and then you can fill out the forms. And most of it is intuitive, and you just kind of go through the questions, enter in your location on the map and everything. But there are a couple things that are best to check ahead of time, like your iMap person ID is something that you need to use these Survey 123 forms to kind of connect them to your online account. They don't have the same sort of username password sign in that the mobile app has. So you just need to get that code number, which our help documents do show you how to do that. You just log into iMap Invasives and go into the main menu to your user account to see your person ID. And one thing I want to encourage people to use within Survey123 is the favorites feature. So this lets you save a couple of answers to certain questions so that you can just paste those for each one of your surveys. So for example, you may find yourself having to type in your person ID, your organization ID, maybe your state, like some of that basic information, and you have to kind of put that in every single time. And to make that faster, you can use the favorites feature. And we do outline the full process in our help documents, but the general process is you start filling out the form until you've gotten through all of the fields where you would want to save those to use in future forms. So once you get your name, organization, just the basic details before you do anything with location or species, and then you stop and you close out that form and save it as a draft. And then that draft form pretty much just sits in your draft folder and just sits there as a reference for your favorites. So that form itself never gets submitted, but when you create new responses, you can then paste the answers from that draft form, and it'll just paste in your ID codes and all that other basic information. And to go through some of the specific Survey123 forms, so our general iMap invasive Survey 123 form kind of has all of the functionalities that you would find in the online data collection process, but in the Survey123 forms, you can do it out in the field. So you can do points and polygons, you can do multiple species at single locations, you can do treatments as well as not detecteds and presence, and those all go into iMap invasives on an hourly basis. So whenever you send your records from the Survey123 form, when you get back into connectivity, those will show up in iMap invasives within an hour generally. And just to also mention, there are two main options within this Survey123 form. So there's the advanced option, which lets you do more detailed data collection. So you can delineate a area where you have searched for invasive species and then indicate areas within that area where you have located particular invasive species and or treated invasive species. But there's also a simplified option where you just drop a point and then you can tag species that you found or that you did not find or that you treated just to that point. It sort of creates a small polygon for you without you having to click out a polygon. And so this is especially quick because you can just tap a button so that it uses your GPS coordinates. So it just automatically drops that point for you and you don't have to go on the map and click it out yourself. So that's a good option for if you need sort of the advanced data fields, but you still want that quick point-based data collection. And then in addition to that general iMap Survey 123, we do have a couple of other forms that are geared towards specific data collection needs. So for example, the SAS Pro or Simple Aquatic Survey is geared towards people doing aquatic surveys. So mainly built around rake tosses, but can also be used for other surveys. So it basically you create a searched area and then you can indicate where you've done rake tosses or other aquatic surveys, and then indicate which species you found in those particular rake tosses. And one particularly useful component of SAS Pro is that you can um, list out a target species list. So say the 5 core species that you're looking for or something. And if at the end of your records, you haven't created any presence record for any of those 5 species on your target list, it will automatically create a not detected record for that species once it gets into iMap invasives. And here's just an example of what that looks like in one case on in iMap invasives online. So this is after these records got crosswalked into iMap invasives. You can see this polygon is where this person surveyed. They conducted these 2 rake tosses on these two green points and detected those species, Eurasian watermilfoil and brittle naiad. And then they also have these species that were on their target list that they did not find. So those became not detected records for that searched area. And so this is mostly used by professional partners, particularly AIS coordinators in the PRISM network. But some programs have shared this with other groups, and in some cases, even with trained volunteers who are doing rake toss surveys. So that is an option as well. But since it's more geared towards this specific use case, it is a little bit more involved and more detailed than some of the other options we've talked about, which are more like the iMap mobile app is the easiest and most volunteer friendly. And in terms of any updates, so it's ready for 2024 data collection. The forum is still publicly available. You don't need to sign in to ArcGIS Online or anything. There are a couple minor updates, particularly to the species list, that will be completed by June, but it is still functional right now. And thank you for anyone who used the tool last year and assisted with reviewing the data. Thank you for your help. And please review any remaining 2023 records if there's anything in there that hasn't made it into iMap yet. And then we also have the forest pest data collection tool, which is another one of our Survey 123 forms. And this is created specifically for people doing forest pest surveys, so hemlock woolly adelgid and other species like that. And so the current version is available as is for current users. So in the picture, you can see examples of records taken using the forest pest survey 123 form. But I also wanted to highlight a new version of the form called Rapid Forest Pest. It's basically just re-envisioned as a point-based data collection. And so this is new as of the past few months, piloted for this past winter. So basically you capture a single point and that encapsulates your entire record. And we're still seeking additional users to test this out and tell us what you think. And for anyone who's already using the forest data collection tool, the one with polygons and everything, you probably have access to this as well already. So feel free to download it and let us know what you think. And if you are interested in this tool and you don't know how to access it or you haven't seen it before, please feel free to send us an email and we can give you access. You can also send us feedback that way. And the last Survey 123 form I wanted to quickly mention is some of you may use or have used the post-treatment effectiveness Survey 123 form. This was created by Fate Saiwang Nguyen during his master's work at ESF. And for those of you who don't know, Fate is now on the iMap team full time. And so if for anyone who's used to using this, you can feel free to continue using it if you find it useful. We don't currently have any updates planned at this time for this tool. So it just kind of exists in its current state for anyone who still wants to use it. And data collected from this form will be bulk uploaded into iMap Invasives like our other tools. And if anyone has any questions, wants to offer feedback or get access to this tool, you can contact Fate, and we will have contact information listed at some point during this webinar. And you can also contact Fate to request data that you've submitted to be uploaded into iMap. And so that was the Survey 123 forms. So I'll pause for a second for any questions before moving on to iMap Mobile Advanced. And I see that there has been some activity in the chat. So I'm just catching up on that now. Just scrolling through to see if there's anything to cover. For the comment on a full training for the Survey 123, we do have a recorded version, and we could certainly do another one. We haven't done one. I think the last one we did was last spring. So we could put that on our list for one of our upcoming trainings. Thanks for that idea. And I will also show where people can find our past trainings and recorded trainings as well. All right, so I think, and thank you to everyone who started to answer what tools you've used. Very good to know. Looks like a lot of people using the iMap Mobile, also people interested in the Survey 123. And so next, I'll pass it back over to Doug to talk about iMap Mobile Advanced.
Thanks, Mitch. So for iMap Mobile Advanced, this is our only other map-centric tool besides the online interface. So you'll be able to see kind of that ortho image overview of the area that you're going to be taking data in. This tool is popular with some of our larger partners like state parks or the PRISM networks. It's pretty useful if you're going to be doing sort of these large scale invasive species surveys or all-inclusive surveys. If you're going to be conducting any sort of treatments, or if you have sort of multiple people taking data in one area to make sure that there's not too much overlap in where they're doing surveys. So all of the different options are available for taking points, lines, polygons, treatment data, and all that different kind of data. So as far as updates, the iMap Mobile Advanced app is ready for 2024 collections. There has been some minor updates to the species list to have the latest New York species that we track in iMap. And now for treatment polygons, you can tag up to 3 target species. So if you're sort of doing a inclusive removal effort for woody shrubs that includes honeysuckle and autumn olive and buckthorn, you can include all of those in the same treatment polygons now. There's also a post-treatment effectiveness field added if you're returning to sites that you conducted treatment at previously. And then just like the other forms, if anyone has any offline areas on any of their devices left over from 2023, we just ask that you kind of sync up that data and then delete those offline areas and create new ones for 2024 to make sure that everything is up to date. Next. And then just a few tips to make sure that the data coming in is easy for us to review. Although we have the most users for our mobile app, we get the largest amount of data from our Survey 123 and our field maps tools. With these big partners kind of doing these large surveys, we get big bulk uploads of data. So we want to make sure that it is easy for us to kind of review it and get it back to our partners as soon as possible. So some tips for collecting data. Before you go out into the field, review all the attribute tables to make sure we know exactly what we're going to be collecting. Kind of practice doing that in the office or in the field before doing surveys. Writing down any numbers that are necessary. So for things like creating searched areas, you'll need organization IDs and any project IDs that you'll be submitting data to. And then for taking the data in those searched areas, you'll need your iMap user ID for each point that you're collecting. And then also going through your collection settings on either your phone or tablet, whatever you're taking data on, to make sure that everything works best for the type of data that you'll be collecting. So things like checking your GPS accuracy threshold and the streaming threshold. If you're going to be taking a lot of polygons, this is how often, if you are streaming around a population, how often it will take a vertice. So if you're doing very large polygons, consider upping the distance for that so that you don't have a whole bunch of very short vertices to make a polygon. Having simpler polygons just makes the whole process of uploading a little bit streamlined for us. And while you're taking data out in the field, we ask that you make sure that all of your data is associated with a searched area. So kind of in that nesting egg kind of diagram over on the right, having a large searched area and then having all the data contained within it. It's better to start out with a very large searched area that you can then trim down later, rather than trying to stretch a searched area out after the fact to encompass all the data that you've taken. So making sure that everything stays within it. This includes polygons. So if you have any polygons, making sure that it's entirely contained within a searched area. Keeping polygons clean and simple, like I mentioned with the vertices, making sure that they have as little vertices as possible. And then also making sure that they are simple, not having any sort of self-intersections. So if you have a polygon that sort of does like a figure 8 and crosses over itself, trying to avoid that whenever possible. And then associating treatment data with a presence. So just like in real life, if a species isn't there, you can't do treatment for it. So if you're doing a treatment polygon, making sure that it is over top and associated with a presence polygon. And then also ignoring old taxonomy species. So this doesn't come up too often, but there are certain species that have had their scientific name updated in the network system to better match up with other jurisdictions in the network. So some of them we're not going to be using anymore, but those are specified as old taxonomy in the common name there. So if you see any species that have that in the name, don't use them and look for a more updated version in the species list. And then after you've conducted your data collection out in the field and you're reviewing the data, we ask that you remove any of the test data. So if you're doing practice points or polygons and you're using fake species for testing, or if you practice making searched area and there's no data associated with any of them, sort of deleting those before sending any of the data in for us to review. Reviewing data on your own before marking it ready for upload. So if you go onto the ArcGIS online interface in the iMap Mobile Advanced Data layer, you can select your polygon or your searched area polygon and see all of the data within it in sort of that table view, and just doing a quick scan through it to make sure that all of the fields have been filled in, all of the numbers line up and are correct before you send it to us or mark it ready for upload. And then referring to our new help document. So it hasn't been released yet, but we are in the development of making just a quick help doc that mainly highlights a lot of the things we're talking about today, just common errors or tips on how to kind of streamline the data collection process and review process to make sure that things get handed back to partners as quick as possible. And then after the data has been reviewed, let us know when you have batches of records that are ready to upload. This is also highlighted in the description of the iMap Mobile Advanced data layer on ArcGIS Online. So just send us an email when your data is marked ready to upload. We're also working on, in the future, having a system to automate the data review and allow people to send their data, iMap Mobile Advanced, to the iMap website in a more streamlined manner. And if anybody has any sort of issues or questions about reviewing their data ahead of time, they can reach out to Fate. And then one more functionality. So for the Survey 123 and Field Maps tools, you can download an offline base map directly to your device. So this is useful if you're going to be working in an area with limited reception. This will just ensure that if you are, putting a point down on a map, if you're in an area with no service, it will normally show up as just a blank white map, and you wouldn't be able to see anything where you're putting a point. If you have an offline base map downloaded, you'll be able to see some of the topographic features like the elevation lines or water bodies. And this can be helpful in making sure that you're taking accurate data, placing points, or drawing polygons in the right location. And just like with our other tools, you can contact us if anyone needs any assistance in setting that up.
Cool. Thanks, Doug. And before I talk about selecting a tool again, I'm just going to step back again for a second. So we've been kind of just going through what the different options are so people get an idea of what the universe is for data collection for iMap invasives. But we're not really going in detail for a full training for any of these tools today, but we have done that in the past and we'll continue to do that as well. So we do have lots of we have like PDF training resources as well as past training sessions that were recorded. And I will show you where those are on our website. And I can also include some links in a follow-up email to everyone on the call. And so one place you can see just a quick, basically this table of what the options are is our nyimappinvasives.org/report and invasive page. And from there are also links to our help documents, but I'll also show you where all of our help docs in general live in general on our website. And so now that we've gone through a bunch of the different tools, some of you might be wondering how you know which tool works the best for your project. So it varies based on what sort of data you want to be collecting, and a lot of it comes down to how simple or complex. So do you want quick point records, or do you want full polygons with presences within those polygons, multiple species, etc.? Do you just want to collect presence absence, or do you also want to collect detailed information on abundance and other factors? Are you doing just presence absence, or are you also documenting treatment? So I'll kind of go through what the different tools are most commonly used for. So for people doing single species point records with just basic details, the iMap mobile app is often the tool that's chosen, mostly because that's just a really quick, easy option for doing those quick point observations. But if you're needing anything beyond that, then you might be considering one of our other tools. So for example, if you want to do multiple species at a single point or polygon, or if you want to answer detailed fields like abundance, or if you want to do polygons, or if you need to do treatments, any of those like other general advanced data needs would be available in our general iMap Survey 123. So that kind of is a catch-all for any advanced functionality you need beyond the iMap mobile app. But if you're doing something more specific, for example, if you're doing forest pest surveys and you want forest health information like hemlock stand data while you're doing your HWA surveys, then you might consider our forest pest form. And within there, you can decide between our classic form, which is polygon centric, or our new point-based rapid version if you want that quick point data collection. If you're doing rake tosses or other aquatic surveys, you might use SAS Pro. I'll note that you cannot do treatments on SAS Pro, so that's really for rake tosses and just assessing the abundance and presence of particular species, but not for tracking treatments. And then if you need more advanced functionality beyond all those things, that's when we want to consider iMap Mobile Advanced. So for example, if you want a really map-centric data collection option where you can see past surveys and return to existing sites, have multiple users tag species at the same sites, etc., then iMap Mobile Advanced might be useful. But I should note that compared to all of our other tools, iMap Mobile Advanced probably has the biggest learning curve. It has the most functionalities, which means it has the most things that you kind of have to learn to use it effectively. So that's why we push people towards our survey 123s first if you're interested in more advanced data collection. But we are certainly open to people using the iMap Mobile Advanced. So lots of Prism staff and agency staff use iMap Mobile Advanced. And then in terms of learning more, we have lots of resources on our website. So one place you can go to is our training page. And so our self-guided training section lists out some of our most used training materials, but then also shows you where all of our help resources are. And you'll also see a link for our help resources on the right corner of our website on pretty much any page. It's just a quick link to this library of our data collection tools. And I'll also include a link to this in our follow-up email to people on this call today. But we have this filterable table of our help resources. So you can kind of pick what tool you're interested in learning about, if you want a PDF or a video, and they will show up in the table below. So for example, there's a handout on the offline base maps that Doug mentioned. There's a setup and usage guide PDF for the iMap Survey 123. We have a help doc and a tutorial for the SAS Pro. We have setup and usage guide for iMap Mobile Advanced, and we also have that table that we've been showing throughout the webinar today. So a summary of the different data collection options. All right, and before moving on, take a quick look through questions again, see if there's anything. So we got one question about the iMap mobile app. So using that option that Doug was talking about, where you take a picture where you bring in a picture that you took previously, and it reads in the metadata, so the date and the location from that photo after the fact. And so the question was about that not working in some cases. So it depends on what kind of device you have and what settings you have set up, but essentially you need to have geotagging enabled for your camera so that the location and date is stored within each of your photos. And so that is laid out in our mobile app help doc PDF. So check there for more information, and always feel free to reach out to us if you have specific questions as well. And so another question, how do volunteers add data to a specific organization in the mobile app? So in the mobile app, there is a place where you can fill in an organization or a project, and those will be based on what organizations and projects the user is a part of. So when you do that retrieve IMAP lists button in the preferences tab, like you do that when you first create your account and when you first set up the mobile app, and you'll also be prompted to do it every couple of months. But when you do that, that pretty much logs you in on the mobile app. And so it'll bring in any projects and organizations you're a part of. And so for volunteers, they would need to be a part of the organization or project, and then they would be able to select it in the mobile app. And you can also set default organizations and projects. And one thing I'll mention about organizations and projects and volunteers, so organizations are typically used for staff, or like members of some organization, whereas volunteers are usually either just reporting on their own, or they're reporting to a shared project that their volunteer coordinator has set up. So feel free to reach out if anyone has any questions about that. Oh, and also going back to that point about geotagging, um, we're also we're gonna take another look at it in case there may be a bug or something. So we'll, if we discover something and discover a fix or anything, we'll be sure to share that information. And we got another question about forest pest form. So the question is, would the Hemlock Initiative get that information if we're using the forest pest program? And so I guess the short answer is yes, eventually. So if you use the forest pest form, that gets crosswalked into iMap invasives on every year. So once that's in iMap invasives, then that information is available to Hemlock Initiative staff through iMap invasives. And yeah, so and then Doug just posted a link to that help resources page. So that's what I was mentioning up here. So feel free to take a look at that. And you can click the NY Advanced Tools to get the help docs on the Survey 123 and iMap Mobile Advanced and those more advanced tools. Or you can click on Mobile App to get information on the basic mobile app. For example, the PDF, which does include information on how to make sure the geotagging is working. All right. Then I think at this point, we'll shift to the email alerts. And before I do that, I'll just reiterate something that John Rado just mentioned in the chat. So following up on the Forest Pest Forum and Hemlock Initiative. So it's important to mention that the Hemlock Initiative was involved when we were developing the Forest Pest Forum. So a lot of some of the metrics were devised based on the New York State Hemlock Initiative Hemlock Stand Prioritization Assessment, and ultimately the Hemlock Initiative does get access to the data. And so now I'll pass it over to Doug to talk about email alerts. And so for those of you who don't know, email alerts are a pretty useful functionality in iMap Invasive. So we've talked about how to collect data. So as people are collecting data throughout the year and it goes into iMap Invasives, you can set up email alerts so that you get alerted to any new key records that are coming into the database. So I'll pass it over to Doug.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, so to get started with setting up email alerts, this is done through the iMap Invasives website. So you start out by logging into NY-IMAP Invasives and going to the Preferences tab in the upper left corner. In the drop-down menu, you'll see the Your Email Alerts tab. You go ahead and click on that, and it will bring you to this tab. At first, you won't have anything selected. By going to the Add and Edit Alerts tab, you'll be able to see some other tabs. So for the general alerts, this is for the data that you put into iMap. So if your data is being picked up by other organizations or other projects, if any of your data is being updated, or if any of the reports that you've made are sort of a first in county or first in district report, you'll get an email alert on that automatically.
And also any records that go into one of your projects or organizations, even if they're from another user, those would be picked up in these general alerts too.
Mm-hmm. And then for adding custom alerts, this is mainly used for data submitted by other users. So if you're looking for getting information on any specific locations or specific species, you can set up alerts for that using the custom alerts tab. So when creating a new custom alert, you have several options, creating a custom name for it, the frequency. You can either choose to be notified immediately when there is a new record for your criteria. You can have a daily digest and select what time you want it at, or a weekly digest, and you can decide what day of the week and what time you'd like to have it at. And then there's also species and location. So you need to select a specific criteria for one of these. You can either have specific species or genus, type, or legal status, or you can have a specific location, either a full state, a county, or a specific location that you're interested in. So this is just an example of filling one out completely. So if you want to have a digest of all of the tree of heaven information for Albany County, you can select when it comes in. You can select the specific species for a specific county. And then you can also set up a buffer area. So this will be a additional zone outside of the location that you choose. And it will also tell you about information for species that are submitted in that buffer zone as well. And then once you have selected all of the criteria that you want for your email alert, make sure you hit save so that all of your information is saved. And you can also set up as many of these criteria as you want. You can have multiple email alerts for different species, for different areas, as many as you would like. For organizational admins, you'll see a couple of additional email alert options. So for the general alerts, you can get one if a record is a suspicious distance from existing records. There's also an option for adding horizon scanning alerts. So the horizon scanning alerts function very similarly to first in county and district alerts, but it will give you a sort of a three-tier buffer. So you can choose it for your specific location that you're interested in. You can choose if it's for just species recognized by your jurisdiction, by jurisdiction in another, or a different jurisdiction, or if you want to have it for the network-wide list of species. So if you're interested in kind of seeing up and coming species that are monitored in other states, but not necessarily yours, you might want to choose one of these additional options. The only caveat with that is that some species that are recognized as invasive, say over in Arizona, might be a native species here. So the horizon scanning might pick that up incidentally and let you know about a native species that isn't actually on our radar as an invasive. So just keep that in mind if you're choosing additional jurisdictions. So go ahead. Or, so the way that the alerts work for the horizon scanning is that it will give you this specific geography that you requested. So if it's just your county, it will let you know of any first in county or district records for your county. It will then show you any new records in a 25-mile buffer and then in a 100-mile buffer. So you can kind of keep an eye on any approach and region species that you might be concerned with. I think that is it for email alerts.
Great. Thank you, Doug. And so that was all of our content for the day. I know we went through a lot of things. So in general, we just wanted to kind of do a rehash of all of the different tools that are available and some updates and tips on the particular tools. Um, but if anyone's interested in learning specifically about a certain tool, we encourage you to check our online resources or reach out to us. And I'll put our email in the chat. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. And at this point, we'll now open it up to questions from you. So thank you all for joining, and I think we'll stop the recording.